Good morning, everybody. Welcome to the David Uosikkinen In the Pocket podcast. Today is Wednesday. Is it June 8th? I think it's June 8th. Can you believe it? The year is running by quickly. So here we are I'm in my basement. I'm joined by my co-host and my buddy, Freddie B. How you doing, Fred?
I'm doing good. Good to be here.
Excellent. And I'm really happy to have our guest on. We've been trying to do this for a few weeks. He's a very busy guy. He's a brilliant guitar player. I'm learning more and more about him since we do this podcast. It's a great thing about doing that. I can do research and find out about these cool things about our buddy here, Joe Mass. How you doing, Joe?
Thank you so much for having me on. And hey, Fred.
What's up, Joe?
It's great to see you, Joe. Listen, man, just to kind of let everybody know, because we tried to do this podcast last week, and we're using a new program, and I wasn't technically, can I say that, technically set up to do it, and but now we're rolling, and here we are, and we started when I promoted Joe being on the podcast. I mentioned his association with Bootsy Collins. And but he's got so much more going on. You know, he's constantly in motion, which nowadays is pretty amazing after what we just experienced with the COVID thing, pandemic, and Joe, from what I understand, was busier than ever, and he still is. At the last week, we briefly touched on this a little bit because I want to hear about the Bootsy thing, but you brought up something about the Guitar Network, the thing you're doing with Joe Bonamassa that I found fascinating, which keeps you busy every day doing something. So first off, what are you doing with yourself of late, Joe? What's happening, man?
Well, I actually just did something for All Guitar Network yesterday. So All Guitar Network came from my association with Norman Harris. Norman Harris and
guitar
best friends. So Norm Harris and Joe, they developed this thing called All Guitar Network.
Yeah.
And I played Texas for a number of years, and I met Norm in Texas when I did the International Guitar Festival. And I asked Norm if he would listen to one of my little clips.
Mm-hmm.
I record, like, if you go on my Facebook page, you'll see it. Like, I record these little guitar clips, and I put them up, and they're like a minute or two of me just soloing,
Outstanding.
So I sent him a couple, and him and Joe watched what I did, and they loved it. So
wow.
Got back to me, and he said, I'm going to put you in touch with our producer, Mark Rivette. And we're going to have you on every day. Doing this segment called Morning Joe Mass. It's me
amazing
pajamas, and I do this whole thing.
Amazing.
It's expanded a little bit. I do lessons now too.
Yeah.
Back when I started doing it, it was myself, John Five, and Slash.
Wow, that's good company, man.
Doing this, but now it's everybody. Now it's Griff Hamlin does his lessons, and
wow.
There's many guitar players on it.
Right.
Feature and Joe does his thing when he's not touring. He'll do a couple little clips here and there.
Yeah.
And the Tim Pierce, he's pretty fun.
I know Tim. Yeah.
Tim.
Yeah.
Tim played with many different artists in the 80s.
And I know Tim. Yeah.
One of the guys that he toured with and still does stuff with is Rick Springfield.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So, but Norm is the guy who got me the gig on that network.
Yeah. I mean, that must be an amazing thing to even think about. I mean, you're a guitar aficionado, and then obviously guitar aficionados like drum aficionados, we know who is a real great guitarist, great guitar player that's constantly staying on top of their game. When you think of somebody like Joe Bonamassa, who I've seen a number of times, and actually my bandmate Eric actually did a tour with him, and so I saw him and I met him after a show, and I know this guy is constantly for him to see your video and say, "Hey, I want you to put something together for me every day." That's really says something, right?
Well,
How'd you feel about that?
him or more Norm, because but Norm is a pretty important cat in LA. Right now he's not doing as well as he was. He's in the hospital, but he's getting so yeah.
I'm sorry to hear that.
Shout out to Norman's Rare Guitars in Tarzana, California.
Yeah.
But
Right.
one thing that did happen out of that whole thing was I was trying to get myself into a guitar magazine, So I was trying to do this thing in Vintage Guitar Mag that's called First Fret, where it's like one little page of what you do, and kind of like I picture myself as just kind of a journeyman because I do so many different things.
Right.
And so I called them, and there was really no response. But as soon as they found out that I was on All Guitar Network, they put me in the feature article with Joe.
Wow.
Joe was 4 pages ahead of me, and then I was
Nice.
pages. And they called me and they said, "We're going to do a full feature on you." I'm like, "Oh, okay."
Okay. Right. Wow. Yeah. Amazing.
Nice.
Yeah.
Yo, I just want to clarify something for the people out there. The Norman Harris that Joe was talking about is not the guy from Philadelphia who played for all Gamble and Huff.
He wasn't
Different
bad either.
Norman. Different Norman.
I said he wasn't bad either.
What's that? No.
Yeah.
Well, he's deceased. The Norman Harris
Indeed.
from Philadelphia who played with Ronnie Baker and Earl Young on all those great records.
Yeah.
Different guy.
Yeah.
Just wanted to clarify that.
Norman Harris is a guitar dealer that has a store and has had this store since 1975 in Tarzana, California, which is a suburb of Los Angeles, as you know. But he's the guy who got me the thing called Guitar Network.
How long you been doing this, Joe? I'm losing you. There you go. How long have you been doing it? I'm sorry I didn't hear it come through.
How long have I been doing All Guitar Network?
Yeah.
About 3 years now.
Wow. That's really impressive, man.
Yeah, I mean, well, it's like anybody can really do it now. It's like it's not that impressive.
Yeah.
You could get yourself on, but I'm in the AGN Pro lines where they have all Slash and John 5 and me,
right?
But anyone can actually do it now, which is great. Network and play a little bit and have some fun, and it's pretty cool. And the producer Mark, he lives in Hawaii, so I talk to him all the time.
Very cool. So leading up to that whole thing, I mean, when we first met a few years ago, you mentioned that you were heading to New York, or you were doing some tracks for Bootsy Collins, and how'd that association come back with you and Bootsy? I mean, how did because I know he's not a Philly guy, even though he would come to Philly a bit. How did that happen?
Sorry. Yeah. I have.
You're doing well.
Yeah, thank you. Okay. I have to mention Fred DiTomaso. And everybody knows Fred.
Oh, love Freddie.
Yeah.
Freddie did.
Good man.
Fred, he got me the NAMM show. I started doing NAMM in 2005, and it was for Fred's company. And at that time, they were distributed by Fender. They're called the Andrea products. So I was playing in LA at the NAMM show, and I was playing with the violinist from Parliament. George had a violinist a long time ago named Owen B. So Owen B and I were demoing wah-wah pedals. He plays like Hendrix playing violin. I was doing my thing. And out front of me was this gentleman that I recognized, and it was Bernie Worrell. So Bernie went into the booth where Bootsy was. Bootsy was signing autographs in the booth, and I was demoing his new Bootzilla wah-wah pedal.
Yeah. Do you remember what year that was, Joe? Do you remember the year that you were doing that? Do you
05.
05? Was 05?
Yeah, it was 05. So Burrell said to Bootsy, hey, you got to come and see this kid play right? You got to see this kid play guitar. So Bootsy watched me play guitar, and he said, hey, man, we got to hook up. And here's my email. I'm going to send you stuff tomorrow. I'm like, okay. But I didn't really think anything of it. I mean, he is Bootsy Collins, you know.
Yeah, sure.
He's working with Buckethead and this guy.
Oh, yeah.
He sent me a track the next day. He sent me something to play on, and he said, try this. I'll give you direction. And then we talked on the phone, and then I sent it back to him. I did it. I forget where I did that. I think it was at Range with Aaron Levinson. But we recorded something, and we sent, or was it with Brian Bricklin? It might have been with Brian. And we sent it back to him, and he loved it. So from then on, I had this working relationship with Bootsy Collins, and I did 2 records with him, and then the third record I did was Worldwide Funk, which was released in 2017. We took this tour all throughout. We started in Hawaii, and then
great. That's what I was just going to ask you, if you did any live playing with him, if you were out on the road. So Yeah,
we were in Hawaii, and we did this huge concert for OceanAid. It's for saving the oceans of the world.
Not a bad idea.
And we did that with CeeLo Green. CeeLo Green was too.
Oh, nice. Great singer.
And Bootsy said to me, there's something wrong. Like, I can't hear things right. I'm like,
right now?
No, just
no, this is story.
He's like, I can't hear things right. So he went to the doctor, and we had this whole tour scheduled. We were doing The Hague. You've done The Hague, right?
Yeah.
The Forum, and all these places in Europe. And I was on my way to Dallas to play the International Guitar Festival. And I was getting on the plane, and I got a text from Bootsy's management. The whole tour got canceled because he had a tumor behind his eardrum.
Hey.
But he's okay. It was benign, but we couldn't fly. So we couldn't tour. And he wanted to get it removed, and he had an operation, but he's fine. He's fine.
Oh,
so
that's good.
After that, Bootsy said, I don't know if I want to tour anymore. I think I'm going to stay in the studio and make records. But we were supporting the Worldwide Funk record then. Yeah, great. And there's 3 or 4 guitar players on it. There's myself. There's Buckethead.
No Buckethead.
Brian. Well, I know him as Brian Carroll, but Buckethead.
Yep.
And there was Eric Gales.
Wow.
New blues players on there.
Yeah.
And the Cheathams were on there too, which is kind of a go-to for Bootsy. But I played on 4 cuts of that record. So
that's remarkable, man. I mean, I don't think
nice.
Like, I wasn't aware of it, and I mean, I'm more of a listener. Like, I got, nowadays it's even super easy with all the formats out there to listen to, Spotify and all this iTunes. I'm more of a listener, but I really, I must say, I try to, hear something, go, well, who's playing on that or whatever, but those days of making records where you were looking at an album jacket and seeing reading liner notes and things like that is something that's kind of got lost. But you've done plenty of side work and playing on different records, which keeps you a busy man, I mean, and it's remarkable the people that you're associating with. I mean, those names you're talking about, like I really didn't know a lot about John Five until my buddy Rick Cornetti, who is a long time, he was a part of Cinderella, but not been playing on stage, but we're buddies, and he's got a great, amazing collection of guitars, and I'd hang with him, and he was telling me about this guy, John Five. And, I mean, and it's weird, Buckethead is another guy that you would hear that was, when any guitar player or something, when, you need somebody, his name was always mentioned. And now I'm hearing about Joe Mass, so it's really cool, Joe. It's really cool that you keep the train rolling, train on the tracks, man. It's really cool.
Yeah. One thing I got to say is like, I've played with a lot of different people that are pretty famous.
Yeah.
I still work for EBE, Events on Expectations, where we do affairs, weddings, all that. And because I'm a working musician,
Yeah.
That's and they've been so good to me. And at some point,
I get it.
On Saturday, I'll go play a wedding.
I get it.
That's the money's great, and I'll tell you the truth. To be a wedding cat, like to do that type of work, you got to be good too.
Yeah. You got to straddle a lot of different genres. You got to know your parts. You got to have some good recall. You got to be able to read. I mean, and there's a lot of guys I know that don't read that do that, but they got a special thing going on. It's a lot of work, man. And anybody that thinks that because you're doing something like that, there's, because I remember in New York, there are people, famous guitar players who are doing exactly, what you're doing. And that's amazing and very cool. And keeps your chops up too.
Yeah, not only, but like I'll play the ceremony on piano, and then I have this app on my phone called iReal Pro, and that lets me get into all the real book stuff. And it gives me the background with drums, bass, and piano. And I can mix that any way I want to. And the sound man, he drops me a nice full-range speaker. I bring my little amp. And I'll play anything from All the Things You Are to Sonny. And I'll do, like, I love Pat Martino. So when I play Sonny, I quote unquote try to do a little.
Yeah. Did you know it? Did you know it, Joe? Did you know Pat at all? Because I have a local friend that I used to play with, John Mulhern, that played in this band, and they were good buds. Did you know him as well? Did you ever meet Pat?
Yes, I met him many times. And did I know him well? I would have to say I certainly didn't know him like Gino White did or like Steve Beskrone did, because Beskrone toured Italy with him. But I knew Pat well enough to say hello to him and talk to him about music.
Yeah.
That's the extent I knew Pat Martino. But when I was a kid, I wore out the Pat Martino live record on the music label.
Wow.
Oh,
when
yeah.
he played Sonny, that was, to me, the introduction to jazz that I needed. And then from then on in, I bought Wes Montgomery records. I studied Wes Montgomery, the way he played polka dots and moonbeams. I loved that. I mean, and West Coast blues and all that music. And Pat Martino, Sonny, the Great Stream, all his. He was the master of the 16th note feel. Pat plays 16th notes like perfectly. And when I talked to Beskrone about Pat, he said, "Yeah, Pat basically used bass strings on his guitar." But
oh wow,
I think he was. There's so much great jazz that came out of Philadelphia. I mean, Coltrane studied here with Dennis Sandoli.
Wow.
So did Pat,
was the first guy to tell John Coltrane, "Hey, John, I think you're reaching for a higher sound. I think you should try a soprano saxophone." And he went out and bought a soprano like the next day. And then there's like Jimmy Bruno.
Yeah.
And the guy that I studied with was Chuck Anderson.
Right.
And he was the teacher who showed me how to pick. I mean,
Yeah.
he showed me what to do with a pick. There's no question about it. When I was a kid, he was the cat, man, and he showed me how to pick the guitar.
Wow.
Other guy that I learned stuff from, and his name was Nick Lewis. Nick Lewis, he could play blues, and he was this. So I learned how to do vibrato from Nick Lewis, and I learned how to pick from Chuck.
Wow. And so you weren't necessarily somebody you did. So you studied privately with these guys. It wasn't.
I didn't study with Nick. I watched them. And
there you go. That's like studying. You're going up to see him. I get it.
Yeah, I studied with Chuck though. Chuck showed me how to read and like up to that point I was self-taught, but I learned how to read from Chuck, and also then things took on a different thing. I got into different things, and then I started. I met this guy named Lou Luzzy, and he was from New York, and he was a great saxophonist. And I was reading the book Chasing the Train, and I'm like, you know what? I really want to learn how to play saxophone.
Yeah.
So I went to Lou's apartment.
Right. It's funny. I forget who it was, but somebody just mentioned the other day about your sax playing. And I know that you've been very encouraging to me about my trumpet playing.
Yeah.
And I remember you pulled it out. I mean, it's, you're using different senses when you're using an instrument like that. But I wasn't, one day, you were encouraging me, and then I saw you pull out your sax and you started playing, and you were like, whoa, this cat can play. Well, it's really cool.
Let me say one thing. Okay. Well, I went to Lou, and Lou said, let's go get a saxophone. The day I learned saxophone. So we went and rented an alto, and I learned out of the Universal book. I played nothing but classical music and just rudimental exercises were in that book. And he taught me how not to overblow. And there was just so much going on with the armature that he was showing me. But I must say that I call myself a good actor on set.
Right. There you go.
In other words, I'm playing on. I'm doing this jazz record too, and people I have on the jazz record, I have Jimmy Haslip from the Yellow Jackets producing my jazz record. I have him. I have Russell Ferrante is playing piano. Jeff Lorber actually wrote me a song to play on. Randy Brecker's playing the trumpet.
Whew.
And Bob Mincer's playing saxophone.
Wow. Wow.
Gary Novak is from Chile.
Yeah. I know Gary, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
I have Dave Weckl playing drums, and my cousin Eric Scattereggia playing drums, and he's also co-producing this with Jimmy.
Wow.
So I played tenor on three things, and I have this little hook that I do with tenor saxophone where I do four parts, and I compose these great little saxophone arrangements. But when it comes to soloing, like I did when I did the Bootsy record, and both these records haven't been released yet, by the way. But when I did the Bootsy record, of course, I hired Jay Davidson to play saxophone.
Not bad.
He killed it.
Nice.
He's great.
Yeah.
Of course.
So what am I on saxophone? I'm a pretty good actor. I can think, man, it's really good. But really, smoke and mirrors,
Yeah, well, you impressed me. Hey, so I have a few tracks of yours lined up, and so because I want to give people a sample of what you're doing. And you said these albums are I have James Bond, Blue and Green, Love is Power. And are these all from the same album, or what's the deal with this?
James Bond and Love is Power is from the album that's going to be released called Connections on the Bootzilla record label. And I think our distribution is UK Warner Brothers. Hasn't been released yet. Other record will also be on the same label. but that's Jimmy Haslett producing.
Okay.
And that's Blue and Green. Blue and
Right.
Green record. And you'll hear myself, Randy Brecker. Who else is on that? Jimmy's playing bass. Jimmy Haslett playing bass. My cousin Eric Scarareggi is playing drums on that.
Is there any sax on that? You're not playing sax on this one, are you?
No. Ada's playing saxophone.
Yeah.
Randy's wife, Ada Brecker, is a fantastic saxophonist. She's very, very famous too in the jazz. So Ada's playing saxophone. Jimmy's playing bass. Scott Kinsey is playing keyboard. Scott's played with Miles, and he also played with Tribal Tech.
Wow. Tribal Tech, monster band.
Yeah, when I started doing that record, Jimmy was like, hey, man, it came about because Jimmy played on the Bootsy record, and so I contacted Jimmy, and we were talking on the phone, and he goes, you ever think about doing a jazz record? I'm like, yeah, I'd love to do a jazz record. Would you produce it? And he goes, yeah, why don't you send me some songs? Have you written like some jazz stuff? I'm like, oh yeah. So I hung up with him and I started writing.
That's a good move. Right?
I think I had one thing,
You saw the opportunity, Joe, and you went for it. That's good.
Yeah.
Good for you.
I sent him a bunch of songs and he was like, oh, well, these are good. And I sent him 10 and he picked 6. Ended up doing 5.
Yeah. Well, listen, since we're on that topic and we were talking about jazz and all those guys, Jimmy, can you hit us up with Blue and Green? Because I'd like to check that out. We can play that for everybody.
Yeah.
You have that? Wow. Amazing. Really great. Wow. Wow. That's amazing. Very beautiful, man. Randy Brecker.
Yeah, Randy.
Amazing. I remember I saw Randy Brecker play with I think it Hal Galpin or Hal Galper. I don't know how you pronounce his name. He was playing at Grendel's Lair. I saw him. I think I was probably about 19 years old. But Michael Brecker was playing. It was and Hal Galpin was playing piano, and Randy Brecker was playing trumpet, and Michael Brecker was playing sax. I mean, those guys. You hear that tone. It's insane. Your guitar playing doesn't sound bad either, Joe. Sound great. Really great, man. Really, really good. Congratulations, man. It really sounds beautiful. It's really beautiful.
Yeah, man.
It's really cool. Where were those tracks? Where you might have mentioned this. The actual tracks. Do you know where the rhythm tracks were cut? Where were they cut?
Jimmy and Scott. They cut their tracks in Los Angeles.
Yeah.
Randy lives on Long Island in New York, and Randy and Ada cut their tracks at their home.
Mm. Everybody does it that way these days.
Yeah, I cut my tracks with my cousin Eric at the studio, and I think Eric cut the drums. He either cut them at Range in Ardmore, or
very nice.
He cut the drums at Range.
Yeah.
He did with Aaron.
Sounds like you're all in the same room, though.
Well, the thing is like, it was pretty much like we started the Bootsy record. I call it the Bootsy record because it's, that was the first thing that came about. We cut that record, started that on March 12th, 2020. So it was, throughout COVID, we worked on the record. That's what we did because there was no kick. There was no nothing.
Yeah.
So, we did that record in 2020. And then I started on the jazz record. I think it was October of last year is when we started that, and now we're just getting finished with that. But the Bootsy record came about because I did NAMM in 2020.
NAMM is going on right now, isn't it?
It's over now.
It's over, right? It was so odd to have NAMM in Los Angeles in June. It was strange,
It's usually in January.
Right.
So in January 2020, I went to NAMM. I was asked to play at the Roto Sound party. So I flew to LA, and I did that with Billy Sheehan, the bass player.
Oh, I see Billy. Billy does Mr. Big. He's usually doing the festival thing in the summer, so I'll see him from time to time.
Has a big studio in Nashville, and he still teaches, and he's a really cool guy,
Yeah.
So I asked him when we were done playing, hey, I think I'm going to do this record. Would you play bass on it? And he goes, yeah, sure. So he's on one cut.
Cool.
I played with Sonny Landreth, the greatest player, and he's on one cut of my record. And then I have a good friend named Gary Hoey.
Yeah, I know Gary.
Yeah,
San Diego guy. He lived not too far from me when I was when I lived in Southern California, Southern California. I was in San Diego, so I know Gary. Gary's in San Diego, he's a legend, but guitar aficionados.
He lives
in Wales.
He lives on of Massachusetts and New Hampshire.
Oh, is that where he's living these days? Is that where he is?
Yeah, he lives in
You know what? I bet, I don't know if you're familiar with a label called Surf Dog, but Neil Schroeder has a label that's based out of, it's in San Diego. So
Right.
he was one of their main people. So, I was out there for 20 years, so I just assumed that he was a San Diego guy because he was always there.
Yeah. He did the Endless Summer. He did the soundtrack. And but I met Gary because we played Texas together. So we did this every year. There's this thing called the International Guitar Festival, and it's run by my friend Jimmy Wallace. And Jimmy gets all these people together. So at any time, like I played with a lot of cats down there, and I'll tell you, it was a great schooling for me because when you go to Texas, I remember the first time I was playing the International Guitar Festival, and I was playing with Jimmy and Jerry Don Branch and all these cats, and I was listening to the way they played blues, and I'm like, I don't do that. I need to get that in my arsenal of playing.
What is it that they did different than what you did?
It's just like I think I grew up like studying the Johnny Winter and live.
Yeah, that's a great record, though.
The greatest, yeah. And
Yeah.
Texas, and there's a few cats that play like that down there, but mostly every note they play has such like emotion and feeling, and I didn't feel like I was doing that, so I learned something from them. But that's the way I am. Like I never think I'm any good. Sometimes
It keeps you rolling, man.
Trying to learn something,
Yeah.
Learn
Yeah.
today, so I could be better at what I
Yeah.
do.
That's incredible. I tell you, I admire that. I like Freddie. I'm a practicer. I'm one of these guys. I was away for the last 3 days. I took Dallin out to Frank Lloyd Wright's place, Falling Water, and I went to see the Andy Warhol Museum in Pittsburgh. And I'm not carrying. I didn't even bring sticks with me, so I get a little mental. I mean, up until then, I constantly had sticks in my hands. I was constantly doing something, and then I'm away for a few days, and I go, something feels off. You're probably the same way. Every day you gotta be. I did, but you'll be proud of me about this, Joe. I carried my baby Taylor with me.
Oh.
So I would do a couple of scales and things like that to keep my fingers going. But practicing and playing and wanting to get better every day at something and learning. So I think what you meant, you said learning something, even not getting better, but learning something, even if it's something that, that's key, right?
Yeah. I think, I'll sit down at the piano because I play piano. I mean, that's one thing I do play besides guitars. I do play piano and I do play violin. So
wow.
when I practice violin, I'll go throughout. There's a book called the Wolfhart Book and Opus 45, and you can use it for guitar too, but it's a great violin book. And I have all these like Baroque kind of duets, and I'll record one of the parts on violin, and I'll play live to that with the next one. I just do it on my phone too. I have this JBL 5, and I'll record something on my phone, and then I'll play it through the JBL Flip. I'll give myself a count, and then I'll play along with it, And I practice like that all the time. And I guess I would practice like maybe 2 or 3 hours every day. Now it's less because I'm doing a little bit more. Like I met with the art director that I'm doing for the record, for both records. It's going to do both. So I had to do that yesterday, and just a couple other things here and there that I'm taking care of as far as like, I have this deal with Patty Collins, who's Bootsy's wife. We're constantly talking about different things that we're going to do, and then I meet with the A&R guy. So there's been a lot of that lately, and Jimmy's on the road right now with Oz right now. Oz Noy's a great guitar too.
Yeah.
I talk to Jimmy a lot, and we discuss different things about the production and about, Jimmy would will call me like here and there with the record and go, do that over. That's this is a different level. I want you to play that solo again, or
Yeah.
He does a lot is he motivates me to be a better player by like giving me stuff to listen to too. Jimmy will always like say, listen to this, and I want you to try and capture this.
Right.
And he's done that a lot for me in doing this record. So not only is he my producer, but he's also been a good teacher.
Yeah. Wow.
You
really, that's well, you've earned it. You get to all the work that you do. You get somebody like that, a confidant, a teacher, producer. It's great stuff.
There's this other cat who runs EBE named Mike Gendler, and Mike's a drummer, but he's a producer. And when I gave him the Bootsy record, he said, listen, I think the songs are great, but I'm not liking the production. Let me work this. And so he kind of brought, like the Bootsy record, the way I look at it, it's kind of like supernatural.
Yeah.
The record's supernatural because I'm older, I wanted to portray myself more as the Santana guitar guy. And then I was singing a bulk of the material that I wrote, but fired myself from that.
You fired the vocalist, right? Were you being difficult, Joe? Were you being difficult? The difficult lead singer, huh?
The thing is that I felt like the songs had more of an R&B feel, and I have sort of like a Mickey Thomas, tenor sound. So I wanted to hire somebody that was more in kind of like the Bruno Mars category. So I hired this guy, Rich White, and he came from EBE, and that's Mike's company. And then Mike basically took the songs and made them a little bit more modern and made them a little bit more saleable, I think, public. And I've gotten some good response from we've gotten good response from a couple distributors in Europe that want to push Love is Power. That's one.
Right.
And that's what we picked as the first single. And he had a hand in the production too.
We have Love is Power. Let's why don't we play a bit of that? Why don't we play that?
Why can't you see the color of love is me? Why do we cry? Yes, there are the reasons why. Please let us understand before this love will die. Let's make it real plain, so all of us can try. The time is now. The universe is ours. Believe in love. Love is power. We are so different, yet we are all the same.
Wow.
Why do we suffer and then cast the
Wow. Hey, I want to chat a little bit. That sounds beautiful, man. That's great, man. That's really nice. I'm glad you. This is a song that actually you were singing before, and then you hired this guy.
Yes.
Cool.
I sang it to him in the studio.
Yeah.
What I wanted him to do, and he's a brilliant singer, and
It sounds amazing. Yeah.
he just took it out and did what I needed him to do.
Wow.
All
Nice song too.
vocal goes to Rich White.
Yeah. Yeah. And song sounds great as well. Really, really great stuff. It's really great. So touring, have you spend much time in Europe? Have you gone, because you're playing, like I hear your music, like it you got a real eclectic thing going on, because the fact you play all these different instruments and what about now a lot of guys, players, like the jam band circuit thing, is that something you've ever like thought about getting involved with? Have you done any of that?
Well, like I said, early in our conversation, David and Fred, I've done the tribute world. I do this thing called Broken Arrow, and it's a tribute song.
It's hugely popular. It's real. I mean, you guys are doing great. Before COVID hit, we were on track to do like 35 gigs a year doing that. Yeah.
Play places like, we played the Ardmore Music Hall. We actually sold that out a number of times too.
Wow.
We would play the Arcada in Chicago, both Infinity Music Halls in Connecticut.
Yeah. I remember you played a venue that I played. I played a venue with Smash Palace in New Jersey. It was a theater, and we were opening for a country artist. I remember there weren't a lot of people there, but I remember the theater was a really nice theater, and I saw you guys were playing there as well. It was on the way to Atlantic City somewhere.
I know the Lavoy.
There you go, the Lavoy, right, Freddie? You probably played there before, right? Yep. It's a nice place. What's the name? Bob Rose, the promoter, booked Steve's band there. We played there. It was a really nice venue.
Yeah, and I do this other tribute called Live at the Fillmore, and that's
okay.
Brothers band stuff.
Oh, right on.
So I love it. And we actually have a run coming up where we're going to go Virginia, North Carolina, Georgia, and then back.
Do you know Johnny Neal by chance? Are you familiar with Johnny Neal, the piano player? Have you ever played with Johnny?
Yep, I know him.
Wow. He's another one of those guys that I'm guessing because he's blind or almost blind, that his senses are so amazing that like playing with that cat was really a mind blower. I mean, he did the Allman Brothers gig for, I think Greg passed away, for about 10 years. A great singer, great piano player. Yeah. Figures you would play with him. It's cool.
Friend Doc Strong played with Johnny Neal too.
Yeah.
Doc played guitar in Johnny's band for a little bit.
Yeah. I heard Johnny. I haven't talked to Johnny in a bit. I did some recording with him, and Johnny's a super good dude. But I heard his health is a little, I think he had a stroke or something not too long ago, and he's kind of getting himself back. But,
I think he's diabetic too, David, I think.
I mean, every day I was watching while being down there in Pittsburgh, I watched the documentary on Warhol, and he would always say, health is wealth. So lately I've been thinking, how lucky all of us are to be feeling well and doing what we're doing, because, it's, we're lucky to be doing it and lucky to be healthy. And until you've had like any kind of thing like that happen, you don't know. Cause I know Johnny always made the best of his situation with his eyesight. I didn't think he saw this coming, but when you have something like that go on, it makes you kind of assess your life, like, holy crap, so, we're all very lucky people,
Yeah. You gotta be an athlete to do what we do.
Good way to put it. Joe, you're so right.
Yeah.
Yeah. And when you go, I remember being on the plane to Hawaii, and I had just come from a gig the night before, and then I got up the next morning, and I flew to Atlanta, and then I flew from Atlanta to Honolulu. And I remember getting off the plane and meeting the rest of the band, because Bootsy, for that tour, hired some of Prince's band.
Ah,
So I got to
right.
play. We did a tribute to Prince, and I played with members of Prince's band, and I was
Great, but always great.
And I remember them like correcting me on a couple little things, you know.
Yeah.
I remember,
Yeah.
Adrian Crutchfield. He played alto with Prince. He's like, that's great, Joe, but that's not quite right, you know. You have
Right.
you're 16th note off, man. I'm like,
Yeah.
okay,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah.
And Bootsy
Yeah.
was sitting there, and Bootsy's like, I can just see him doing that. And but it was a great concert. And
Oh my God.
talking about what we were just talking about, Adrian said, "Yeah, man, you had to be an athlete to be in Prince's band, because you had to live in Minneapolis. That was number one, and you were on 24/7. You had a beeper, and if Prince beeped you, you had to do whatever you were doing. You had to go to the studio."
Mm-hmm.
But he was like that 100% of the time, and I guess, you know, that's a testament to, like, no matter what you're doing, you have to be on like every second.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
And if you're
That's a bit of pressure, man.
Yeah.
if you're not on, then you get replaced.
Yeah.
That's the way he was.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it was that was a really good learning experience. I mean, all the stuff I've done has been a learning experience. Like when I played with Robert Hazard here in Philadelphia.
Oh, right on. I didn't know that.
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
Starting in 1994.
Okay.
Fred got me that gig. Fred,
right on.
He was the bass player.
Did you play with Kenny? My friend Kenny Bernard?
Kenny Bernard was
the Kenny's a good buddy of mine. I love Kenny.
Yeah, Kenny was the
salt of the earth.
Kenny was in the band. Fred was the bass player. Fred got me.
Yeah.
He recommended me to Robert.
Yeah.
I forget who else. This was the time when Robert was calling the band the Roberts. Chip,
I didn't know that.
The other guitar player.
Oh.
You know, and so Robert hired me to play keyboards at that time and some guitar. So I was playing keyboards in the band, and then Chip left, and then I became the guitar player, and I played with Robert from 94 until 2000 and the end of 2003.
Wow, long time.
And I did one record with him called Hombres.
I got to pick that up. I got to grab it.
I don't think he ever put it out. But I have somewhere. I have a copy of that.
I'd love to hear it. I'm a fan of Roberts. You know, I always loved him, and brilliant writer. It's sad when you think about somebody that loses their life at that age, man. And what a talent. You know, I hold him, and he's an icon here, man.
Super talent.
Yeah.
A lot of people. I played with Felix Pastorius, Jocko's son, and we did a tribute. I did this tribute to Jocko with Gerald Veasley. You can look that up on the internet. It's like
I'll check it out.
2012.
Yeah.
We had one rehearsal. On that gig was Pablo Batista was playing percussion. And
wow, I know Pablo. Yeah.
The original drummer from Weather Report was playing drums.
Oh, right on.
Will Byrne.
One
of the original drummers for Weather Report. And Gerald was playing bass. I was playing guitar. It was a really great concert, and I learned so much from that show. And then we did another one with Felix playing bass, and Felix and I got along real well. And we did this concert together.
Yeah.
And you know,
Joe, amazing.
From everybody, I learned a lot from Bello. I was his music director.
Yeah.
And
you know what? You keep referencing you know this podcast has been great because there's been a common theme. You say I learned a lot. Joe, I always get good guests. Always we get great people to talk to, but you're such a humble cat, and you have this attitude of I want to learn, and you're still growing, and you're excited about music, and that's inspiring to me. The things we talked about. We're coming close to the end of the podcast, and man, you got to promise me at some time maybe you come back and we chat some more, because you got like a lot of lives going on in one, Joe.
Well, I would love to come back. I mean,
Yeah.
One thing I do is I love Philadelphia. I've always been a fan of the music scene.
Yeah. Yeah.
People talk about the music scene in New York, but the music scene here is pretty amazing.
Oh, no doubt. No doubt.
There's, the pop bands. Let's go
the jazz bands. Amazing.
A's, like Robert Hazard and all these incredible musicians that made all that music happen.
Well, I want to get you at some point. You got to come play on one of the In the Pocket tracks. I'd love to get you to do something. Freddie has.
There you go.
I'd love to.
Yes.
I'm going to track you down outside the podcast because we talked about doing something, and I would love to. I'd be over the moon because, I mean, the stuff we talk about and your likes and what you want to do, it's very impressive. It's very cool.
Yeah, I want to say one more thing about like learning and everything. Like, if there's any musicians out there that are, aspiring to do what we do, it doesn't matter how old you are, and also
good point.
When you keep learning, that's how you stay young too.
Indeed.
Young, by learning new things.
Right.
When you were 5 years old, the world was everything was a learning experience.
Yeah.
So I try to do that now, and I just keep going and try and get better at what I do, because you could always get better at what you do. Nobody is the best.
Yeah, I think you're doomed when you start thinking like that. I think learning, your attitude is something that you hear. You just gotta, because there's so much to learn.
Right.
Yeah. Right.
Sometimes I'll put on a video like on YouTube or something, and I'll go, listen to this guy play. I mean,
right. Yeah.
Oh my God. I got to learn from him.
Yeah.
Take a little piece of what he does and inject it into what I do, and that's how I mold myself into different things and learn different things. I mean, I've always been able to do that, and it's just an ongoing thing.
Yeah, that's good stuff. Hey, listen. So people that are going to see the podcast. Probably the link will be available later this afternoon, I believe, when Jim has it ready. What should we know about what's coming up? What, the records are coming out. What would you like to promote? Because it's your time to give us that shout out.
Okay. Well, I do have a show coming up on the 24th of June with Broken Arrow.
Cool.
Ardmore Music Hall. The records that I have will be coming out probably in the late summer for the Connections record. The record's called Connections, and that's on the Bootzilla label.
I'll share that on my social media when it's ready. You let me know.
Yep. And other than that, I'm just constantly working with different acts and doing different things.
Cool. Yeah.
I post stuff periodically.
Yeah.
I mean, I always.
Are you busy on the 25th? I'm playing. I was going to hit Freddie too. I got this In the Pocket thing going on, concert under the stars in Upper Marion. If you're playing the 24th, if you're not busy on the 25th, come and sit in and play a couple tunes with us, man. It'd be cool.
I could, but
if you're free.
I'm playing.
You're working.
I'm working the next theater on the 25th. Playing with.
There you go. I know you're working, man. I got you.
Yeah, but man. Thank you so much for having me on.
It was a blast.
I totally enjoyed what you did, David. Fred and I have been friends a long time.
We love
we had
Freddie.
our first band together.
a monster musician
man.
too.
Yeah, indeed.
He really
And-
is. Anything.
Easy.
Oh, shucks.
And the best human being on the planet.
Yeah,
I love you
all
guys
good,
too.
and hopefully we all just continue to do what we do. We love
Yeah.
what we do, and we love everybody out there for supporting what we do. I always put that whenever I put something up. I say
Yes.
thank you so much for supporting all our musicians out there.
Yeah, indeed.
All of them.
Yeah.
And there's
Yeah.
Yeah.
so many great guitar players just in our area. My good friend Chris Gordon, that I've played many shows with. We did a whole jazz run at JJ's Grotto.
Oh, cool.
We did this thing at JJ's for 4 years. He was with me. Well, I did the gig for 10 years. That's how I learned the real book and how to play that out of the real book. I went and got a gig.
Wow. Wow.
But
That's
he's
amazing.
great.
Nice.
There's just so many great players just out of the
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
so many great
Yeah.
things.
Right.
You guys there's two of them. I'm looking at two of them right now.
We keep working at it. We keep working at it, man. Hey, well, listen, thank you for being our
Yeah,
guest,
man.
Joe. It was an absolute guest. I'm going to give you a shout regardless. We can't do the 25th. We'll figure something out. Freddie, I love you. I hope I see you on the 25th, and we'll talk about
Love
that.
you too, bro.
Come on, make
I have
3
2
that day.
gigs that
Anyway. Anyway,
All
listen.
right.
Thank you for tuning in, and we'll see you next time on In the Pocket.
Thank you, David.